Looking at Ukraine today, the main reason why Ukraine is still standing is Ukraine. It's not because of the rest of us. And the only reason why they didn't win Kiev in the first couple of days in the war was because of the Ukrainians. Some of us, and after that, many of us have supported them. It's good. But I mean, everything has been too slow, asking me. So you remember when we had the discussions about F-16s, we were not allowed as Danes to provide Ukraine with what was totally necessary because some allies said no. You remember the discussion we had in Vilnius and in Washington about Ukraine getting into NATO. Some allies said no, they are still not a member of NATO. It would have been much easier and much cheaper to have them as a member, because then we would be in a totally other situation. You remember the discussion about red lines on the long-ranging missiles and so on. Some allies said no. So we have been asking them to fight for the entire European Union with one hand tied on their back. That has been a huge mistake. So if you want to win a war, you have to fight it. And therefore, when you ask me, what should the democracies do to win the battle on the global scene, there is only one way forward, and it is to be more powerful than the others. So in the future, power will be the only money you can buy something with. Talking about Ukraine today, I think there are some positive signs on the battlefield. I do not participate in the wordings about that we see a totally weakened Russia. My guess is that Russia are preparing themselves to attack into another European country. I actually see no signs of the opposite. Our problem is that the so-called peace negotiations with US and Russia has, there are no results, and a bad so-called peace deal for Ukraine would probably be a disaster for the rest of Europe. So I think we have to stick to what we have said from the beginning of this war, that we will not accept any Russian win in this war. That cannot be the conclusion.
I couldn't agree more also on a possible Ukrainian membership of NATO. That would be the most effective, least expensive way of guaranteeing the security of Ukraine. But in the lack of that membership, could you imagine a new European security architecture where Ukraine is an integrated part? So Ukraine is not only a consumer of security, but a producer of security. It's the strongest military power, the most battle-tested military power in Europe. So why not include Ukraine in a multilateral European new security architecture?
I don't only believe in it. I think we totally depend on them now because of what you said. And one of the things I'm really proud of being a part of is the Danish model in Ukraine, because as you know, we have been one of the biggest donors to Ukraine. Because from the beginning of the war, I haven't seen this conflict as a conflict about Ukraine, but as a conflict about Europe and Russia's imperial dreams. And when you know that Russia wants the old empire back, then you really have to be aware and stop them before going even further. But at some point, we didn't have any more to give away. I mean, we simply ran out of equipment that we could donate to Ukraine, and we couldn't buy because people were out of stocks. And then we developed this Danish model where we support production lines directly in Ukraine. And that is at least a small part of why Ukraine is still standing, especially on drones, but also on other capabilities nowadays. So what they have experienced on the battlefield, and by the way, the drones have changed everything in sea and in sky and on land. And therefore, when we are, rearming Europe, we have to think differently from what we were thinking about just a few years ago. So, their experience on the battlefield, their production on different kind of capabilities, we need to put it into rearming the rest of Europe, yeah. And rearming Europe, in my perspective, is now, it's not in 35. I disagreed actually when we had a new goal in NATO about using 3.5 in 35. That will be too late. It is latest by 2030 that everybody should reach 3.5. And asking me, are you sure that it will be enough? No. Because I think Europe has to be able to defend itself. Absolutely. I mean, totally. Not only because of Russia, the problems with terrorism coming from the south, problems in the Arctic region. You just heard Jens Frederik, by the way, a leader I really admire. But also because it's a question about, for me, it's a question about identity. A Europe that is not willing and not able to defend itself, who are we then?
Yeah. Well, we are soon going to close this discussion. I will not interfere with domestic Danish
Maybe
politics.
it could be helpful, actually, if you did.
Well, but anyway, according to the Democracy Perception Index that we published today, Denmark stands out as one of the countries happiest with our democracy. And, by the way, with most people willing to fight for our country. So what do you think make Denmark's democracy strong, and what could others learn?
That's a big question. I will say cohesion and social balance as the most important aspects. Because if people don't trust that tomorrow will be better than yesterday, then they stop believing in democracy. And it is extremely difficult to carry responsibility today because there are so many voices in the public atmosphere telling people that they can solve all the problems so easily. They are lying, we know that. The populists will never be able to do what they are claiming, but the voices are extremely strong. And because of social media, that we haven't been able to regulate the algorithms yet, then you will look into a more fragmented, more divided political landscape. So I think one of the reasons why Denmark is still in a good democratic position is because of our cohesion. That is one of the areas where we disagree a little bit, that inequality is not too big, that people still believe in our welfare system, and that they believe that someone will, have their back if something happens. So fighting for democracy today is on the global scene when it comes to rearming ourselves, security and defense. It is to regulate tough the tech giants because they are working directly against our democracies. And it's like we don't understand it. We don't believe in it. It's too scary, but they will do what they can. And they are, by the way, working hard on it to undermine everything we believe in. And then thirdly, build a strong society where people believe that tomorrow can actually be better. Otherwise, they won't vote for people like you and I.